and welcome to 10 Very Big Books, a Malazan Readthrough podcast. My name is Peter Bond. With me today is our producer, AJ Fileri. How are you doing today? How are the bars, the levels? How's your morning? Whoa!
I'm coming in hot from space. Here I am.
Space.
From T-Space. I came out of T-Space. There we go. That's a specific reference.
Okay. I'm just going to say one of the best jokes in the whole book is near the end of the book. There's this line that's like, no, sound doesn't travel in space. End of lesson.
Yeah,
parentheses.
that's how sci-fi
And this
teaches.
is how science fiction educates.
Yeah, really good.
Parentheses.
Really, really good.
Really.
Anyway.
It's not the last line in the book, but anyway. So I just couldn't stop. I'll introduce the third leg of the stool. So he was there with us for the first two. Willful Child, my friend. He's watched a lot of Star Trek in his life. It's one Nathan Quinn.
Hello.
How are you doing today, Nate?
I'm good. Set phasers to kill.
Hey.
I'm excited to be back talking about this third and final ? Willful Child book.
It seems final.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, and referencing that quote about this is how science fiction educates.
This is how science fiction educates.
I don't know if you guys know this. I think it's a reference to Hugo Gernsback, the guy who the Hugo Award is named for, is like a pioneer of science fiction. He was firmly adamant that it wasn't science fiction unless it was educating.
Wow.
So like I think was an editor of one of the first like science fiction magazines that was publishing science fiction stories, and he wouldn't include your story if it didn't have some educational content. So he was really gatekeeping science fiction. So it's glad we're glad Stephen Erikson got in under the wire at the very end of the book with a little education. That way he can be termed science fiction according to Hugo Gernsback.
I just found it very funny and a mockery of that exact idea that people are walking away from these stories with some great knowledge of science.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, as if anything in this book is educational.
Exactly. But science fiction, you know.
Incredible.
Anyway, so here on the show, I don't know, time's a blur. The show is an infinite loop. I do not know where it begins and ends. At some point, we read the other two Willful Child books, and now we are finished. We have completed this trilogy, which was a much easier task than reading the Book of the Fallen on the show. Yeah. So we squeezed them all in, and let's just we're gonna chill out, talk about it. We're probably gonna spoil the whole book, but once again, I don't really think it's something to be spoiled. You know, hang out. We're just going to shoot the shit about this book.
Yeah.
AJ, kick it off. What you think of the third installment of Steven Erikson's Star Trek satire?
Yeah. So I think I might have a hot take.
Hot take.
I did not like this book.
Okay.
I don't know.
I'm fully open to this take.
And I would say maybe it's the way in which I read it, which was all last night. But but that's how I read the other ones as well.
Okay.
And I loved the other ones. This one just wasn't hooking me for some reason. I don't know.
Just didn't get you.
It just didn't get me. And I'm going to be totally honest with you folks. I didn't finish it. I got to like chapter 10 and then was like, oh man, and then like flipped all the way to the end, read that science fiction line, and was like, nice. and then I went to sleep, which maybe isn't the best practice for coming on a podcast and talking about the book, but I do think, you know, for this specific book, I got the idea.
Yeah.
And I know these characters and stuff, and that was really what I enjoyed most about it, I guess, is coming back to these characters. I really, 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 really enjoyed Nina Twice, who just has to do everything 2 times.
Yeah.
Like, all-time incredible gag.
It's a fun gag. I don't think I noticed that in previous books. I don't know if he just hit it harder in this book or what, but it was such a fun gag this time.
Yeah, I didn't notice it in the other ones, but maybe it was happening. But I feel like she was definitely more present in this book than the other ones.
All right. I would love to. I think we should try and pick at that scab for a sec, but I do kind of just want to get everyone's first thoughts. Nate, did you have a similar experience? Where you at?
Honestly, I think I liked it more than the other two. There were
crazy take.
Yeah,
crazy take.
There were probably fewer like random vignettes in this one. There was a little bit more connective tissue. And we did check in with some random side characters for no reason. I don't know if I loved checking in with Betty and Molly all the time on Ruta Pimente. But still, I think I liked it a little more. It just felt a little less aggressive. Like there wasn't quite as much. I don't know. There still was, but there wasn't as much as the previous two books, like sexual advances from Captain Hadrian. I don't know. It just felt like a chiller time, a chiller read. The references were fun. I don't know. Maybe that's why I enjoyed it. Is the references got me this time, and you guys were probably like, "What the hell is going on?" But I don't know. I had a good time.
I do agree. I think it's a much chiller book than the other two, and I like it's still somewhat angry, and we are getting a lot of swipes in about humans, society. We're Twitter. Like these dumb, whatever, people. But yeah, I agree. That's not like just an observation. But Nate, you say that what you said there at the end about the references is really how I'm framing it. How do I feel about the other two? I don't know. I feel roughly the same. I feel like, I don't know. If you read the first one, I don't know if I would tell you need to read these other two, I basically feel like they're kind of just more of the same shtick, but different stuff,
Yeah, definitely.
But here's a hashtag ad for our own hashtag content.
Nice.
In that for the Patreon, you can go on there and we're going to talk about some Star Trek, the original series episodes. So for that, I recently watched some of the Star Trek original series, probably the most episodes I've ever seen of that show, and it was only a handful. And I got to tell you, so I'm watching these episodes, and it's right after I read this book, and I was like, man, Nate must be having a total different experience reading the book than I am. It must be just unspeakably different. It seems so clear that in some way, maybe this book just isn't for me at all.
Yeah.
I tried to pick some episodes that were relevant to the content in the book. So as a teaser for the people who are not Patreon supporters but want to hear that episode where Peter and AJ watched some original series episodes, we watched, we watched Mirror Mirror, which is always a fun choice because there's always a lot of mirror content, mirror universe content in these books. That's a fun gag that Steve Erikson loves. We watched Who Mourns for Adonai, which is the visit to the Greek.
Isn't it Adonis?
But you would think so. But it's Who Mourns for Adonai because as we'll talk about on the Patreon episode. These original series episodes are all named after some bullshit literary poem from the 18th century or something. And we also watched Patterns of Force, the one where Kirk and Spock go down to a Nazi planet.
Amazing. These
These are the kind of episodes that it seemed to me that Steven Erikson really enjoyed making fun of in the Willful Child books. And it's exactly what you're talking about, Pete. It's exactly the kind of thing where he references it for a couple chapters probably. And it really hammers on, the Nazi episode, for instance. I don't know what you guys were thinking when you were reading this without that context.
Exactly. It was listen, I had a fine time with the book. It's not like I really walked away. If anything, at worst, it was kind of a shrug. Do you know what I mean? But there were plenty of parts I found funny. But I almost feel like I was watching Meet the Spartans and I didn't know 300 exists.
That is a timely reference.
I know that's a really specific reference to mid-2000s movie parodies, but
I totally get that though. That totally tracks.
Right. Imagine watching Scary Movie without Scream for an even more timely reference.
Right.
I just I don't know. I guess watching more of the show made it clear how much of this book is probably just referencing a bunch of stuff I don't know.
Absolutely.
So.
And not just the original series, although Erikson really favors the original series and the original.
It does seem like mostly an original series riff.
He also clearly loves the original movies. I mean, there's a lot to parody in there.
Because I had watched 24 Next Gen episodes, but I don't really feel like a lot of that's in this book besides some tiny stuff.
Yeah, right, exactly. You probably picked up on the brief references to
Captain John Lucky Placard.
Yeah, John Lucky Placard. He gets a couple pages of featured and then he dies off or something. They kill him off, right?
Yeah, but it's still not like, it's not where the focus is.
Yeah, exactly. I think he also references a lot of those original movies. And those movies are ridiculous a lot of times. Specifically, the title is The Search for Spark, which is referencing Star Trek 3, The Search for Spock, which, if you guys recall, at the end of The Wrath of Khan, spoilers for The Wrath of Khan, it's a very old movie, but it's fun and you should watch it. Or you should subscribe to Patreon and go listen to the time where we talked about it.
We love that movie.
It's an all-time great movie. There's a rule of thumb that Star Trek movies for a long time, only the even number ones were good. So Star Trek 2 was good. Then Spock dies at the end, and they have to go search for him because he's actually alive, as if they would ever kill off Spock. Although I think they killed him off because Nimoy wanted out. Anyway, it
was a Leonard Nimoy thing, right?
Yeah, and they named the entire book The Search for Spark.
But JJ got him back, baby.
Well, of course.
JJ got him back.
How did you guys feel about the joke, the one-page novel, The Search for Spark?
I didn't get that until I was flipping, until I went to the end and like looked back through the book again. And then I was like, oh, I understand now. So for those of you who have not read the book, The Search for Spark is only the first page of the book. And then you flip it and the next page says bonus novel.
Right. They found Spark and then bonus
Hadrian
novel.
says, where's Spark? And then he's behind the comm station or whatever. And then the next page, it says bonus novel, Willful Child, The Undiscovered Bunny by Stephen Erikson. And then the rest of the book is that bonus novel, which I think is an all-time great gag.
Exactly. And that bonus novel references a lot of, Star Trek 5, The Final Frontier, the one where they meet God, and Star Trek 6, The Undiscovered Country.
That stuff totally was confusing to me.
Yeah.
I guess it makes more sense that it's a reference now. I was like, a lot of this stuff, it's just because it's so random, it's just this shrug, and it's like, I guess this is what we're doing.
Yeah, and this is probably why I enjoyed it a little more than you guys, is because it's really direct references. Like Star Trek 5, where they go to meet God, the ship gets taken over by a fanatic, and they go to the edge of known space or whatever, to the galactic barrier or something. And there at the edge of space is a godlike entity pretending to be the Judeo-Christian God.
Hey, I'd like to meet God.
Yeah,
sounds fun.
Wouldn't we all?
Wow.
But listen, so that's just basically how I was feeling. I want to at least get to AJ, our harsh critic of the show, the Waldorf and Scully. What are the names?
Statler and Waldorf.
Statler and Waldorf of the show. So what do you think there's what do you think the difference is? I feel like basically all three of these are really similar books.
Yeah, and I think that's what it is. I think the first one was like, this is a new shtick. The second one was like, I enjoyed the shtick in the first one. Let's keep going. And then I also just, I think, enjoyed generally the second one more because it felt a little more focused. Not super focused, but more focused on the first one. And then this one, I don't know. I think I've gotten sick of the shtick. And without understanding the references, the shtick is not enough to bring me through 300 pages.
Yep.
Yeah, that's I think that's just where I feel I like they got off the Nazi planet, and I was like, I feel like we already did this joke of like the nice guy brigade left and the Nazi right. Like we did that in the second book, and so without knowing that there was a whole Nazi planet in Star Trek, I was like, we've already done this entire gag. Why are we doing it again?
Yeah, I will say it did feel like in the first and second books, the references were a little more oblique. Like we did go down to that planet where it was taken over by a bunch of idiots. And it was like an oblique reference to Trump being elected and right-wing politics, and also kind of to Star Trek dealing with that stuff, but also not directly. Whereas this book, they literally go down to a Nazi planet, as we'll talk about on the Patreon bonus episode, I'm sure, the drugged up leader is actually one of their own and decided it would be. It's very direct. I don't know.
I thought the Nazi planet was funny, for the record, and also Nazis can go fuck themselves.
Yeah, so no, I liked the Nazi planet and enjoyed the whole planet being set on fire.
Wow,
that was good. I just felt like, I don't know. I had gotten to that point and I was like, I've already kind of done this shtick, and I understand that. I think the second one came out in 2015 2015, and this one came out in 2018. So it was like right before and in the midst of.
Yeah.
I didn't know this was so fresh.
Yeah, well, that's what he referenced. Trumpisa May. And I was like, this is a Trump and Theresa May, portmanteau or whatever. I was like, how new is this book? 2018. I was like, holy crap. But it tracks.
That's
and
surprising. I for some reason I thought these were like all written immediately post Crippled God.
Yeah.
But obviously I was wrong. So
Yeah.
Is that when the first one came out?
I think the first one was like
I don't know.
11?
I don't know what he wrote right after Crippled God. I wonder if it was Carcanis or whether I did know he did Rejoice, Knife to the Heart, but AJ's Googling.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no, the first one came out 2016. So it must have been. It must have been.
Was it 16, 17, 18?
It must have been, yeah.
And what was immediately post Crippled God? I'm going to guess it's Carcanis.
Came out in 2011. And Carcanis, the first book of Carcanis, I don't know. Forge of Darkness, that came out 2012, yeah.
Wow.
And then Fall of Light came out in 2016, and then Willful Child came out.
I wonder. Anyway,
Yeah.
so let's get back to this. Listen. I agree. The horse is well and dead.
Yeah, I think that's really all it was. Is I got it, and I was like chuckling, but I wasn't finding it anywhere near as funny as I found the first two books, and I don't know what it was. I don't know if I was just like more tired, but like when I finished Wrath of Betty, it was like 12:30 at night, and then I watched Wrath of Khan. So like I don't think that's it. There's just something about this book and it being like the third, I don't want to say rehashing because it's obviously not, but like to me, who has no experience with the original series of Star Trek, it kind of is, because it was just like like I said, without the references, it's just the same shtick.
Right.
And
right.
I kind of just got sick of it.
Pulling away the references, obviously, I found a lot more new things to like in this book.
Sure.
They were just new references to different
so
things.
Nate, what's some of this stuff?
Yeah, so I mentioned, a lot. There's a lot of stuff from Undiscovered Country and The Final Frontier. I keep forgetting the name of Star Trek V, The Final Frontier, where they meet God. I just know it as the one where they meet God.
Where they meet God.
Undiscovered Country, for instance, has the Khitomer Accords, peace talks with the Klingons. Unlike the book, which has the Kitty Meow Accords.
I did know that. So
and it does get referenced a bit in Next Gen, the Khitomer Accords, just as a political kind of touchstone for the post-war Federation. But
I liked all the cat stuff. I thought it was funny.
It was funny, yeah. I did enjoy turning the Radulak into very silly cat stuff. Oh, I guess it's the Clang, because
the Clang of the cats, the Radulak are the snot monsters.
Oh, right, the snot monsters, ridiculous. And the other thing that is from that movie is when Supreme Admiral Drenchmaster drown you all in my magnificence, Bilbert. Sorry, I had to pull that up to reference.
Yeah, all the names.
Bilbert and the other Radulak are misquoting Dr. Seuss all the time.
Oh man, yeah, that was really good.
Very funny, very good.
That one landed for me, Nate, because I remember you telling me that was a thing that happens.
Usually they're quoting not Dr. Seuss,
right? But they're quoting American, like Earth authors and being like, oh, they stole it from us. Like,
so
oh my God.
Right, so according to Bill Burt, it's Radulak, wordsmith, drencher, Brian Zeus.
Brian.
But, in Star Trek 6, there's a Klingon who quotes Shakespeare all the time and claims it's better in the original Klingon. It's very directly this guy who cannot stop quoting Shakespeare. I don't think he misquotes it though. That one I think is Steve Erikson putting some sauce on it. That it's funnier if he's not actually.
Erikson put in some sauce in the book.
No.
But those rhyming couplets that are supposedly Dr. Seuss references are just so funny.
Yeah,
gets me every time, especially because it's always a very dramatic moment.
Something I really liked in the book was I thought the explicit D&D, Marines enjoying D&D
yes.
was pretty silly.
Definitely a highlight. Twice it comes up, and they really ham it up for a couple pages. They're describing all of their characters and how they fail, and how Lieutenant Sweepy Brogan is a very cruel and vengeful DM.
Could you imagine Steve's played D&D in his life? Also, the tiny The fleece, I'm sneezing now, but the flea stuff is really good.
Bless you. Yeah, the flea stuff is great. The fact that there's this colony, on Betty, I guess, or Molly, probably Betty, because I think they all die off, and then we get a short interlude of
we get the whole interlude. It's amazing.
All Quiet on the Western Front is the parody there, and as we get the whole condensed novel of the Flea's perspective, and then we get that fun list of Steven Erikson's pun patrol, where he comes in and just lists a bunch of alternate books that could have fleas. Honestly, I do feel like this book more than the other two just enhanced the idea that Steve Erikson has a Rolodex of puns going through his head at all times, and he feels like he never gets to write them. So this is his excuse to put them down on paper and subject the world to his fun puns.
I do agree he has a giddy sense of energy where it's like, I'm just going to write 30 puns right now.
Right.
And no one can stop me.
Yeah.
Right.
I feel like this book, you said it has that Steven Erikson energy. I feel like this book in general has more Steve in it than the other two. Like there are,
I feel like they all are pretty Stevie.
no, they're all definitely Steve-y, but I think this book specifically has a lot of like parentheticals or like brackets of like, it basically feels like Steve is just like, hey, like here's the gag. And just, directly speaking to us, which I think isn't a thing that happened in the first two books.
Right. That science fiction line. Yeah. There's a bunch of things that are clearly direct from Steve.
Yeah. There's a bunch.
I do agree. In the first book, although thin, there's at least a veneer of narrative and like storytelling.
Yeah.
Where I feel like at this point in the third one, it is like all but abandoned. And essentially, I don't know. It's pretty, like, to call it a novel, I don't know. I don't know. You know what I mean?
Right. It's a string of puns and references and silly Steve. I can't imagine he, plotted this out too much more than here's some things I want to do with this book. And here's a chunk where I want it to be a Nazi planet. Here's a chunk where I wanted to do this. And let's string it together loosely. I don't think he was like stressing over the connective tissue on this one.
Right.
I'm sure he had some intention. I guess I just mean like that, like the veil of like, let me tell you this. Yeah. It's just that's not what this book is. You know.
Yeah.
I think it was fun because in the first two, it's like, okay,
it's not a complaint.
In the first two, it's kind of like, okay, where is he going with this? And in the third one, you're like, oh, he doesn't care. He doesn't want us to care. He's not even pretending that there's like a goal. I mean, he's kind of pretending that there's a goal, but he's recognizing that it's as dumb and stupid and pointless as we recognize it to be. It's just an excuse to have and Captain Hadrian talks about this a lot. It's just an excuse to have side adventures on the way.
Yeah. Here's a hypothetical. Do you think maybe there's like one great book that could be here? Here's basically my take. I feel like he kind of has what's tough is, once again, I don't know, for Peter, I feel like it's clear to me now this really has to hit different for different people, Star Trek wise. But I feel like these three books are somewhat samey, somewhat repetitive, and beating a lot of the same beats. Do you feel like maybe there could be one like truly great satire in here,
I feel like if Steven Erikson wanted to write Galaxy Quest, the novel, he could have written Galaxy Quest, the novel. I don't think that was his goal. I think his goal was to exercise some of the puns and silliness that he has in his head about Star Trek, put it on paper and say, okay, here, world, here's what I think is fun and silly about Star Trek. I think it's more to just kind of get it out on the page and have an enjoyable few books for Star Trek fans and fans of his. And I don't think he's trying to write like the ultimate parody of Star Trek and put on the record what's silly about Star Trek. Like I think that other folks have done that well, and he doesn't need to retread that ground.
I do agree. I don't think he's trying to write Galaxy Quest or anything. I feel like he's taking a Sharpie and drawing a mustache on a cardboard cutout of Captain Kirk.
That is a perfect, that's a perfect analogy.
Aj, what do you think? Do you think?
No, I mean, I totally agree. I think Nate really got it. And I also think, given the context of like when these books came out and like how deep into Malazan he was at the time, like I think it was also just a fun like I don't want to like engage my brain at all. It's like I have this, I know everything about Star Trek, the original series. I'm going to make a bunch of dumb jokes. I'm just going to, write the word fart and then send it to my publisher and then we'll be good. And like,
Right.
I feel like that was the object of these books. But I think I don't know. I think he could write Galaxy Quest if he wanted. I don't know if that's like the best question. Cause like he's a good writer. So like, yeah, I think he could do it.
And I don't think that these are an example of bad writing. I think they're just more a fun lark for him to have as a side gig while he's, in between very heavy, very plot heavy, very many threads to keep track of.
Yeah, this was a book for him first and foremost.
Right.
And then was like, and he played it off as like, well, people like Star Trek.
Yeah, absolutely. These 3 books are Steven Erikson getting to play around in the Star Trek universe, and we're along for the ride if we want to. But if we don't want to, he doesn't care.
Yeah,
his publishers are, and actually working in the publishing industry, this is something that happens sometimes. Is you have an author who you want to please and who you like their work sometimes, and other times you just want to give them the book that is their idea and let them write it and publish it for them and only print a handful of copies so that when they come out with their other big book that will sell a lot of copies, they're happy and they do it quickly and they always want to work with you. So it's clear that this one's for Steve.
Yeah.
It feels like this one's for Steve, or that just like this is like him just riffing on this stuff that I like. Obviously, he's like a huge Star Trek fan. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And just like riffing on this stuff that he and a lot of other people love. That's my impression, and especially after, I guess, spoilers. I actually watched more than 3 episodes of the original series, so. To dipping my toes a little bit more, but I don't know. It's like I know that community's so big, and it almost feels like I like walked into a room that like I wasn't necessarily supposed to be in. Do you know what I mean? I'm like, oh, look at you! Everyone's having fun and with the stuff they know, But
right, it's like it's like you happen to be on vacation in a hotel and you are wandering around the lobby and you find that in the hotel ballroom is a Star Trek convention you didn't even realize was there.
All right, exactly. And I feel like I'm poking around. I'm like, hey, this is all right.
Yeah.
What's this? They're
having a lot of fun.
Yeah,
it's a good time. I am glad to hear that you watched a couple more episodes. I'm excited to talk about that in our next episode.
Yeah, we can talk about
Patreon exclusive.
Yeah, all right. We've plugged it more than enough on this show. Okay, hashtag ad. So Nate, other cherries you wanted to pick?
Yeah. So you caught the Next Gen reference with John Lucky Placard. There was also I was excited to see a reference to the new Star Trek Discovery show, which I wasn't sure Steven Erikson would be all that tuned into. A lot of the diehard fans of older Star Trek are skeptical at best and not super into Star Trek Discovery. But Steve seems to have at least a begrudging respect for it and enjoys it enough to make fun of it. The Morning After universe where there's a displacement glitch and they displace over to one of the mirror universes where we meet Captain Lorna of the USS Recovery. There's a Captain Lorca of the USS Discovery.
Amazing.
See, totally over my head.
Yeah, I was like, wow, this is just another universe.
He talks about the resplendent blue uniform with gold braids. That's literally the uniforms on Discovery are blue, and they have like different metallic braiding, and they are dope. They are very, especially compared to the original series, they're like sharp ass uniforms.
Yeah.
The Spud drive prototype, faster than light drive. In Discovery, they use a spore drive, which is science babble bullshit about mushrooms and fungi that lets them somehow instantly teleport. First Officer Daisy, the Cowian, on the USS Recovery, they have a cow person. One of the very few prey species to have attained sentience. This is a really, if you haven't watched Discovery, this is in nonsense. But the first officer on Discovery is a character that is of a species that is called a prey species, and he has like this innate ability to sense danger because his species grew up in a ecosystem where they were the prey, and It's very silly. It's very silly.
So wait, is he a cow person on Discovery?
No, he is.
Okay, that's what I thought you were saying. I was like, no way.
He does have hooves, but that he's not a cow person. He's got these weird like stilt legs. Played by the famous monster makeup actor. Oh gosh, what is his name? He played the Pan in Pan's Labyrinth. He played the eye monster in Pan's Labyrinth.
The one human who was born with hoofs. The hoof
hoof guy. He also played the fish monster from Shape of Water.
Oh,
Doug
I know
Jones.
who you're talking about. No.
Doug Jones.
Doug Jones.
Great character actor who happens to be an expert behind too much makeup effects and latex and hooves, etc.
So if we just step away for a sec, Nate, can I just get a quick take from you? What's you liking Star Trek Discovery?
Yeah, I mean it's a little overwrought, it's a little silly, but so is a lot of Star Trek. So it takes itself a little too seriously, but I do think it's starting to hit its stride.
How many seasons of it has there been now?
I think they just finished the 3rd season, so they are working on season 4. I think was interrupted because of COVID, so they may have picked up production on season 4. It's a whole thing. They have teleported into the future. They were in the mirror universe for a while. I feels like they had a lot of changes on the showrunner staff, and they didn't really know what they were doing. It feels like they're starting to pick up the thread.
Yeah, I heard it kind of found its footing, and I also know, wasn't there more of an attempt, although other shows have had that, to have a more serialized story?
Yeah.
As opposed to more episodic stuff?
Yeah, it's fully serialized, which I think is one of the reasons why the writer's room kind of struggled with it at first, because we've never really seen Star Trek in that way. Like you said, we've seen like 3-episode arcs or something where they're dealing with a similar problem. Deep Space Nine did a lot of that, where it's like, okay, here's what's going on in the background, but each episode still is its own kind of thing for the most part. Whereas these are fully trying to be prestige television that tells a full story start to finish, and each episode is in service of that story.
Interesting.
Another reference, just the final reference I have noted here, is the main character on Star Trek Discovery is called Michael Burnham. She is played by Sonequa Martin Green, and they don't really talk about why she's a woman with the first name Michael. And we get a full reference, the second officer on the USS Recovery being a woman named Bernard Burn Them All.
They say, don't talk about her first name.
Yeah, exactly.
Disregarding the fact that her last name is Burn Them All.
Right, exactly. It's very silly. Steve Erikson probably watched Star Trek Discovery. He was like, this is silly. And wrote down a couple notes.
Yeah.
Man, Steve just loves Star Trek, I guess.
Truly, yeah, obviously. Yeah, it's very obvious.
What a nerd. I have very cool hobbies.
Speaking of things that Steve finds silly, there is an entire 2 paragraphs devoted to how the Star Wars reboots are dumb.
Yes, how the Star Wars
and how he doesn't like
dumb.
the Alien trilogy.
and how the Star Trek reboots are done. It's very tongue in cheek, because he's talking about rehashing previous stories. And it's clear that he's referencing Star Wars, and then immediately starts undercutting the Star Trek reboots as well, done by J.J. Abrams. So he knows it's very silly. Reboot culture is something that Steve Erikson is trying to take down, but he's got his tongue firmly in his cheek.
I will say though, here's just a small, I too thought the sections were kind of funny, but also joking about the Death Star stuff is somewhat we all know.
Yeah.
We all know. But it's barely, it's the majority opinion. I feel like most people are not stoked that we're doing Turner and Hooch again.
Are we really doing Turner and Hooch again?
Yeah. It's on Disney Plus, baby. I know you are dying for it. You can stream it today.
Oh man.
#ad.
I don't know anyone who's sitting around I'm dying for them to redo RoboCop in 3 years, which I'm sure they'll do because fuck this,
Yeah, agreed. I think that is a very common sentiment, somewhat pedestrian. I think Steve has a good take on it, where he puts that criticism in certain characters' mouths and then kind of undercuts it a little bit by acknowledging that everybody's doing it, even the folks we love and appreciate. The Star Trek ones are not above criticism.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you guys think the book's juvenile?
Yes, for certain.
I kind of think it is, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's like we said, these books are for Steve, and it's just him being like, this is dumb, or like, this is just fun, whatever. Like, yeah, I would say they're relatively juvenile.
I haven't read Steve's other work. However, I can imagine,
which for the record is funny.
There's yeah, thank you for being a guest on your podcast about Stephen Erikson's work, having read no other Stephen Erikson works. Well, I can imagine there's not a lot of dick and fart jokes in Steve Erikson's other works.
Listen,
they're different.
He knows how to use humor. I think he's like a funny. He knows how to use humor in his writing. I think he's pretty funny.
Absolutely.
But it's really different.
Right. So I think this is his chance to get the juvenile humor out of his system, to flush it all out and say, okay, well, there's probably not too many of my dick and fart jokes showing up in Malazan, but here's where I get to indulge.
Right.
They do get silly.
Well, listen, I have a small tangent I'm going to go on with AJ, but
Ooh, okay.
I do wonder if we have any closing thoughts to send Willful Child 3 out to sea and shoot a flaming arrow into it. AJ, looking back on these trilogy of books, what do you think you learned from one Hadrian saw back?
What do I think I learned? What was the lesson of these books?
Yeah, what was your takeaway to your soul?
Everything is bad, and it's too far gone to do anything about it, so you might as well have fun while you're on the ride.
Honestly, you might be right.
If there is a lesson, I think that is it. Is that it's just like, hey, it's too fucked, and there's not really anything you can do about it. So just kind of have fun.
Yeah, he does make an interesting point that the world is fucked. You might as well have fun on the ride down to hell. But also,
is that an interesting point?
Yeah, well, it's only interesting because,
or is that juvenile?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely juvenile. It's only interesting because Hadrian, Captain Hadrian, still like goes out of his way to do heroic and capital G good things.
Yeah,
mostly because it's fun for him, because of his, as stated in previous books, obsession with Star Trek.
Yeah.
And being the hero. So it's unclear as much as we want to take any lessons from Willful Child, if there is a lesson, it's like, I don't know, sometimes it's fun to be good and heroic, even though the world is shit and there's basically no point.
Yeah.
But isn't there also like a self-fulfilling element where it's like if you pretend to be a hero and you try to be a hero and you're kind of obsessed, even if it's in this vain sort of way, you can ultimately do good in a consequentialist sort of manner.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'll accede to that. I think that's fair. I think especially if you have the assistance of a rogue AI from the future, Wynette Tammy, sorry.
I would love to have a Tammy in my life.
Yeah. We should all be so lucky.
We should all be so lucky. So Nate, looking back on these 3 books, you're 10 years from now. The world's even more on fire. It's the hottest summer ever again. And on your shelf, there's these 3 books. What do you think you're going to think? Look at them. Wait, what do you think?
Yeah, that is a good question. I don't know if I'll pick them up again in 3 years, did you say? I don't know
10.
if it's that soon.
I said 10
years.
But
okay. Maybe 10 years. I feel like the next time I am like hankering for a Star Trek rewatch, I might reach for these. Like if I get in the mood to be like to really go down the rabbit hole for some original series or like rewatch the original movies, this might also be in my list of things to revisit, just to kind of indulge in my love of Star Trek. It's definitely something that I have enjoyed and appreciated, and I had a lot of fun reading. I don't know if they're much more than just fun reading, though.
Yeah.
Listen, by all accounts, if you enjoy Star Trek, if you're listening to this, you should probably read it. I don't know, like
totally.
You God bless. Make your own decision. I will tell you, I will definitely not reread these books anytime in my life.
Yeah.
Like, is there a chance I will read the Malazan Book of the Fallen a 3rd time? I don't know. Maybe. I'll definitely say there's definitely a chance. They're really long books, but who knows? Maybe I will. Not saying never say never, but these books I'll never read again. I probably. That's fine. But they were fine. They had a good time. Glad I did it. And I definitely, maybe I learned more about Star Trek through this than the actual show, which is, I'm sure, what Steve would want.
Yeah, I mean, if there was any goal, it was so Steve could instill in Peter Bond a greater appreciation for Star Trek.
But to be fair, legitimately, I feel like my introduction to Star Trek is through stuff like Galaxy Quest and other shows referencing Star Trek.
Oh,
Do you know what I
totally.
mean?
Yeah, SNL sketches making fun of Star Trek, or everybody makes fun of Star Trek because it's so earnest and it's been around such a long time, and it
is absurdly earnest. I know we're going to talk about this next, so it is like just unrivaled levels of sincerity to put to screen.
It's perfectly ripe for parody, and it is good natured about it. It's like it doesn't. Star Trek doesn't care that we're making fun of it.
Yeah.
Star Trek doesn't need us to respect it.
I was watching those episodes and I was like, man, what? Just like I don't want to blame it all on 9/11, but
Pause it there and leave it for tomorrow when we record the episode. I can't wait to hear how 9/11 plays into Peter Bond's appreciation of the original series, which came out in the 60s.
All right, we can talk about it there. But
if you want to hear how Star Trek relates to 9/11, #ad.
Yeah,
subscribe to our Patreon.
No, all right, we've plugged it enough. We need to stop doing #ads. All right, I think that's gonna do it for us. I feel like we've covered a lot of it, unless we have anything else we want to get to.
Do you guys have any fun quotes that you want to close with? I have one.
Sure. Let me look at a few of my quotes. I loved that they were called the Hitler old people.
Yeah.
I love the name Mondo Litz, Mysterious Artifacts Division, patent pending at the patent pending Office of the Eternal Murky Legality.
Yeah. Steve loves the word Mondo. It's a very good word. The closed door D&D Mondo Marathon weekend was fun.
Guys, I have a very weird thing in my Kindle version. Do you both have the print version?
Yeah.
I do.
Okay, can you go to chapter 9?
Page 182, Nate.
182, yeah, chapter 9.
All right, now go to the ending of the previous chapter.
Okay.
And there's a dialogue line that says, right, I can do that. Give me a mo.
Yeah.
Now, under it, what's the line?
Beams lashed. Lashed is crossed out, and it says arced out.
Okay, that's what I thought. What's up with that? I don't get it.
Yeah, so I think it's a reference to the previous books when Hadrian comes aboard this ship, and it has like shooty weapons like bullets and missiles and things like that. And he has Tammy reconfigure it so that they're all beam weapons, like in Star Trek, because Star Trek has phasers, which are just like laser beams that shoot for a while. And I guess that's a reference to that. And Steve's like, instead of lashing out, they are arcing out. I don't know. I don't think I fully understood that. And maybe
I don't understand it at all. Do you think there's any chance this was just like an edit that made it in the book? That's my dream.
No, traditionally edits would be done like.
No, I know that's definitely not the case, but you know, a girl can dream. Yeah. So
it is fun. It's very silly to go, okay, Steve, I don't know why you crossed that out, but I'm sure it's a reference to something. You thought it was a fun way to describe it and let us in behind the curtain.
AJ, you got quotes stand out to you?
The one that made me laugh out loud was the first Captain Nawfang scene we get in the transition to the next section. So Captain Nawfang talks with all the W's and stuff. Whatever, it's very silly.
Yes.
And then the transition to the next one, Nate, if you go to the top of page 14, we get these like, you know, stage directions of like where we are. Instead of, it says prison planet Rude Pimente, but right before that says prison, and then that's crossed out and says prison planet. It's really, really good.
Yeah,
really good.
Steven Erikson, the narrator, has gotten stuck in the habit of using W's because they are really funny. All of that, and I'm not even sure what the point of that is, other than to just have a fun interlude with this guy using a lot of W's.
Yeah.
You know, I think it's what we were saying. It's part of the like the postmodern element of this book, where like the framing and the veneer of this book and the story is being punctured. Am I right, AJ?
Yeah, definitely. It's definitely postmodern. I mean, I guess of all his works, this is the most directly postmodern, right? Like,
I mean,
it's postmodern maybe. In like in a whatever the opposite of subtext is.
Text.
Yeah, I guess.
It's like that. Do you guys remember this Simpsons bit in the episode where the Navy is trying to implement subliminal messaging in a boy band song.
Yvonne Niage, yeah.
And the Navy recruiter is explaining to like Lisa, I think, that there's subliminal messaging, liminal messaging, and superliminal messaging. Superliminal messaging, what's that? And he just yells out the window, "Hey, join the Navy." And, you know, Lenny or whoever just shrugs and goes, "Okay."
The Simpsons has some good gags.
Truly.
It's actually a huge blind spot. I think I've really seen like, I don't know, 20 episodes of The Simpsons maybe. You know?
If only there were more Willful Child books so that we could watch Simpsons references, or Futurama references for your Patreon episode.
Funnily enough, I have watched all of Futurama. Like
Futurama
twice or
is
something.
truly great.
Yeah,
Futurama is a really good
Sometimes
show.
I think about how great Futurama is. Anyway,
we are really going out on a focused ending. Nate, did you have quotes you wanted to share?
my favorite quote from page 271. AJ, you probably missed this one because it's toward the end.
I definitely did, yeah.
AJ, there's a fun bit where they meet God and God speaks in all caps.
I did see that, yeah.
God exclusively speaks in all caps. You cannot keep God's chill.
So they're beyond the unknown barrier, deep in the realm of the unknown. And here's a quote. "Sir," cried Eden, "I have God on line 4. So that's about it. That's all I have from Willful Child 3, The Search for Spark.
That's good. No, sorry, Nate. That's Willful Child, the bonus novel, The Undiscovered Bunny.
Oh, you're right. The bonus novel, The Undiscovered Bunny, located in the back of Willful Child, The Search for Spark.
Right. The one-page long
AJ,
Search for Spark.
On the cover art for this episode, can we put the Undiscovered Bunny on there?
Absolutely. 100%.
Well, listen, that's going to do it for us here today. Nate, thank you so much for coming on the show, and thank you for reading these 3 books. Perhaps you'll be on again, but perhaps this is a farewell to one Nathan Alabaster Quinn.
That's not my name, but anyway, thank you so much for having me on the pod. I'm glad we could find an excuse for me to finally join you because, no offense, I probably will never be reading a Malazan book. They're just too dense. I don't know. Maybe if he writes some short stories or something, I could come in. But if you ever need my expertise, my particular brand of nerddom.
Well, Nate, like the whole book's like a short story, man. It's like the whole
He's a short story writer first. That's a fact.
Yeah, man.
I have heard that. and I think that when you write...
That was my Malazan superfan impression. How did it sound?
It sounded very hippie, if I'm being honest. You just don't get it, man.
I will say, I kind of, like, I get what they're getting at. I don't think they're entirely wrong. But
Fascinating. I wouldn't know.
It's not a conversation for right now. AJ, glad to have you on the show. We'll talk soon.
Yeah.
And let us know what you think of the show. We're 10 Very Big Books on Twitter and Gmail. And I do not know what is coming out in the off season.
Yeah.
We are recording this ahead of time.
Something will be out in a week.
Something will be out. You have my promise. All right, everybody. Goodbye.
See ya.
Bye.
Hello, everybody. Producer AJ here, drinking some evening coffee. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the podcast, and thank you also to Nate for coming on and being such a great guest as always. It's always a joy to talk about these books. Again, if you want to hear us talk about some of the Star Trek Original Series episodes, that will be up on our Patreon, #ad. If you'd like to give us your thoughts or feelings about this or any of our episodes, you can always email us, 10verybigbooks@gmail.com, tweet us at 10verybigbooks, or you can head over to our Discord, bit.ly/VBB Discord. That's capital V, capital B, capital B, capital D, Discord. That link will also be in our show notes. Thank you to all of our wonderful patrons over on Patreon. If you'd like to financially support the show, I'm not going to say it again, but you can head on over to the link down in the description in the show notes. And as always, thank you so very much to Dan Gesrick for making our spectacular cover art. You can follow him on Twitter at @A_W_Dan G for the hottest Eagles victory weekday effect tweets. And of course, the wonderful music in today's episode is by the one and only Amaranthin from their album The New Romantic, which you can find along with their other music on bandcamp.com. Links to their pages will be in the show notes, and 10 Very Big Books will be back next week on September 24th with our final final off-season episode where we will be talking bone hunters and much more with Stephen Erikson. Only 2 more weeks until the beginning of our Reaper's Gale read-through. Very exciting. I'll talk to you then, and thank you so much for listening.